Alrighty, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Coast to Coast Gridiron Football Podcast, episode 28, coming at you guys already. I can't believe how fast time is flying. Almost at 1 year doing the podcast already, which is mind-blowing. As well as just how fast time is flying in general. We are to the holiday season. As I was just chatting with Brock, it is a good time of year to be around my favorite things. You know, the three F's or four F's, I guess you could live by: family, football, and food. Or I guess you could say friends, whatever you want to include in here. But I love this time of year, the holiday season. You got bowl season going on in the NFL or college football. NFL is kind of taking shape for the playoffs and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, we just wrapped up a phenomenal CFL football season, so we don't have any Canadian football on right now, but still no shortage of the three F's like I always like to enjoy this time of year. So as I bring in my next guest for episode 28 here on the podcast, my next guest is a product of Vancouver Island. He is a proud Cowichan football program alum, as well as a Langley Rams and University of Manitoba alum. He was the 66th pick in the 2020 CFL draft. Brock Gowanlock. Brock, thanks for joining me this morning. How you doing?
Yeah, for sure. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to get this thing going here.
Awesome, man. So, like we were just chatting a little bit about off camera, I kind of begin becoming familiar with your career and who you were a few years ago when I was playing junior football with a few of your ex-teammates. And then just kind of following your journey from there. You were obviously a fairly significant established player at the U Sports level. And then obviously your transition into the CFL this past 2 seasons. So I wanted to kind of get you on here. Like I said, Brock off camera, nothing too crazy, buddy, nothing too serious. Just wanted to have my podcast be a kind of a place for me to treat it like, we're at the back of the bus or, the back of the plane or whatever you want to call it, just kind of bullshitting and kind of reliving those same experiences that you have with teammates and stuff like that. And for me, that's someone that's out of the game. I don't get to experience that on a weekly basis, those routines of, going to practice and seeing your buddies before practice and bullshitting or going to games and all those sort of things, those bonding moments that I feel like a lot of athletes, not just football players in general, those athletes, I feel like when you're out of the game, you miss that the most. And I think this podcast has been a great way for me to kind of stay in the game, as well as, have a spotlight on some of these athletes that are very good, not just in Canada, I feel like in North America as well. So, Brock, before we get going, buddy, we are doing a new segment here on the podcast called the 40-second play clock. So, basically, it's nice and simple. It's just this or that questions. We're going to put 40 seconds on the play clock. I'm going to ask you a few this or that questions, buddy. You can give me your answers, get to know you just a little bit, a couple little icebreakers for our listeners here on the podcast just to get to know you a little bit better. So I will set up the 40-second play clock for us here.
Okay.
And we can get going. All right, Brock?
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it. Are you a camper or a glamper? So
Glamper.
like glamorous camper, that a boy.
Yeah, glamper for sure, yeah.
Pineapples on pizza, yes or no?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Texter or caller?
So, texter for sure.
Plan ahead or live in the moment?
Live in the moment for sure.
Walks on the beach or views from a hike?
Ooh, views from a hike.
Road trip or plane trip?
I'm going to go plane trip.
Skydiving or scuba diving?
Scuba diving.
TV shows or series or movies?
Series for sure.
And Instagram or Snapchat?
Instagram.
City life or island life?
Ooh, that one's tough. I'm going to go island life.
Okay, and the last one on the 40-second play clock, Brock. 1 yard off the ball or face-to-face?
I've only been 1 yard, so I got to stick with my guns. 1 yard off the ball.
Yes, I had that one written down. And for those that are familiar in BC, we are, I believe, the only province that high school football players play American. Now, me kind of having a little bit of a brain lapse there for a second, I forgot that you were a community ball player, not a high school ball player. So probably would have been an easy layup there for you, but still had to throw that in, just being a football podcast. The last question being tying it all together to the CFL, the good, beautiful game that we love. So, Brock, I appreciate the 40-second play clock, buddy. So before we get going, if anyone that's tuning into the podcast today could like, comment, subscribe down on the YouTube, Like, follow, download the podcast episodes over on the Apple Podcast. All the support is greatly appreciated so far. It's been a fabulous year so far. One quick, we are at 93 subscribers, guys. Go over to the YouTube channel, get us to 100. Thinking probably about doing some sort of giveaway here once we get to a year mark in the podcast. So go get us over to up over 100, and we'll think of a giveaway here on the podcast to come shortly. So, like I mentioned, all the support is greatly appreciated, guys. Keep tuning into the episode. It's been a lot of fun. So, Brock, getting into your story a little bit more, you were from a small town, small community on Vancouver Island here. If you don't mind, I guess, maybe telling us a little bit about kind of growing up in that small community. And then after that, maybe just talking about a little bit about kind of the person that you are, maybe some of your kind of who you grew up with, maybe your family, kind of like brothers and sisters, mom and dad, that sort of thing. Just kind of introduce us a little bit to yourself.
Yeah, so like you said, I grew up in Duncan there, so a little bit of a smaller town, for sure, smaller town on the scale of things. But yeah, I started playing football when I was 8, so I got right into the community program when I was 8 years old, and kind of fell in love with it there. That my first year they had me at middle linebacker and O-line, and I was wasn't interested in blocking. And when I was playing middle linebacker, I was kind of chasing daisies for my first year. And then my second year I came around and they switched me to D-line, and I kind of fell in love with the game from there. It was just kind of like a natural talent for me. And yeah, so so kind of thankfully for me, I had a coach who kind of wrote it out with me. So he started coaching me when I was 9, and he coached me all the way through midget. So it was pretty awesome for me just to kind of have that group of guys, and we kind of kept that same coaching staff and piled on. And he's very passionate, Doug Williams, like everyone calls him Opie. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's a huge part of Cowichan community football. And like I always say, they should build a statue for that guy. He's still coaching now. I go back there, he's still coaching, still a huge part of that program. So yeah, so for me growing up in Cowichan, obviously we have a little bit limited resources, a little bit limited like athletes who've gone through the program and stuff like that. So, but it was really good for me to have Opie there. He's just like a very passionate guy, really, really lit a fire underneath me for playing football and stuff like that. But yeah, like as we were growing up, like, we were the only team in our community. So we had players from, 20, 30 minutes away driving to play with us. Whereas like teams like, Victoria, they had like their 8 teams in that league. And IMO had 2, I remember, when we were growing up. But yeah, so just kind of playing football, like I always just had a big passion for it. And it was awesome growing up. Yeah, like I didn't have a whole lot of people ahead of me to kind of mentor me and to kind of lean on to show me the path and stuff like that. But I had a really strong community around me who always believed in me and always trying to set me up for my best success. So coming out of Cowichan, it's hard to get a lot of eyes. We don't have a lot of film or anything like that. So our coaches set me up for the best opportunity to go to junior. I had junior opportunities everywhere. And yeah, so they just kind of gave me their best advice. And then once I kind of got to junior, just kind of continued to elevate my path from there. But yeah, growing up in Duncan, like I grew up, I got a brother. He's 2 years older than me, Brennan. Me and him are super close. He was more of a hockey guy growing up. I was more of a football guy. So in community ball, you can play for 3 years. So he's 2 years older than me. So when I was 16 and he was 18, he decided to come play football one more year and have a year with me. And it was super awesome. Yeah, like, because it was crazy. I went for my second year Bantam. We were 10-0, undefeated. We were supposed to win it all, and we lost in the first round of playoffs. But so I'm like, okay, well, I'm all fired up. Like we're going into midget, bigger ball. We're playing against 18-year-olds. We got guys who are out of high school and stuff like that. And it was nice to have my brother come back and play with me. And we started off hot, went 2-0, and then we crashed, lost 3 games straight. And I'm like, I'm just coming off of not losing a game all year, like what's going on? And then it was amazing. Like we all rallied together, won every game out from there. And we made it to the semifinals, hosted Coquitlam actually at our field, which was like pretty cool. We had decent crowd out there and stuff like that, especially having that wide range of people. Yeah, and we ended up losing that game. I got hurt in the game, but it was still awesome memories and everything like that. And then, yeah, so just kind of, yeah, my mom, I'm from like a single mom home. My dad, he lives in Vancouver, so he supports as much as he can. But yeah, it's just kind of me, my brother, and my mom growing up there. And she's a huge part of the community as well. Like, you know, we were all so invested in us playing football. It was like we were basically like in the NFL. Like we loved it. Like everybody in our community loved it. Whenever we did well, we got our praise and stuff like that. And the Cowichan football community is so strong that, you know, you'll have guys who, I think the last championship they won was like in the 80s or 70s or something like that. But all those guys still come out, you know, when you have a good team, like you have a crowd of all those guys who still come out, and the flag community and everybody kind of comes around to support us. So yeah, it was awesome growing up in Cowichan and kind of, yeah.
Awesome, Brock. So we're not a hockey podcast, but we are Canadian. I gotta ask,
Yeah.
were you a hockey player as well growing up?
No, okay, so I got into football because my brother recommended it for me when I was a kid. He started playing football when he was like around 8 or something like that, but he had a bad back, so the doctors recommended for him to play hockey. So that's how he transitioned into hockey. And then our school's like, hey, you know, Brock's pretty energetic. I think he needs to kind of take some energy out after school, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So they put me into football. So my brother was always super invested because he loved football. And then so when I turned about 12, I played hockey for 2 years, and I was like, this isn't for me. We'll let him keep playing hockey, and I kind of stuck to my football.
I just had to ask because I always usually try to ask my podcast guests of, you know, how important was the multi-sport aspect of kind of being the football player that you are today. I really feel that that's kind of a huge thing of not really having an off season. I feel like, speaking for my own, but when you went to high school and you always knew kind of, you know, football season would end after, you know, the fall, and then you'd go into basketball, and then spring football would start, and you kind of go into the next sport. And I feel like that's super key and kind of transitioning, learning new different kind of angles and techniques and all that sort of thing. So I feel like I believe when I was kind of doing a little bit of research, you were a rugby player, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that as much as like football and other sports are very skill specific, I think that the general athleticism is definitely the big thing that you need to have to be successful at a certain level, right? Like, yeah, first you have to get the athleticism kind of before you can drill the technique down. So yeah, I agree with you that doing something in your off season, especially when you're younger, is a great way to stay in shape, great way to work on those athletic skills. And yeah, I used rugby for that.
Okay, so tying things back to the Cowichan football program, I went up to the Nanaimo District Secondary, so I played high school football, but very familiar with your guys' program. I actually went down, I believe, for a camp. I want to say like the 8th or 9th grade or something like that. Maybe we even crossed paths, Brock, at that camp potentially. I believe you're 27, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? But just for me from afar, like you mentioned about the small community, people coming from other small towns around the area. For me, what has kind of always blown me away about that program is they've always been really established from the grassroots all the way up until I believe it's the midget levels. You know, when I grew up, yes, there was Pee Wee Junior Bantam at NDSS that was offered. But I believe I think I want to say like maybe 2014, that kind of the grassroots kind of ended, or amateur Pop Warner, whatever you want to call it, kind of ended. I feel like that has kind of affected the program in a big way, and you can kind of tell on the field. Unfortunately for my alum, but you guys have always had a strong culture, established roots, kind of, and I feel like a passion for the game from, you know, the little guys all the way up until you know, the guys that are leaving to the next level. So, what kind of fuels that fire, I guess, if you want to call it that, for that kind of passion of the game of football in the Duncan Cowichan area?
Yeah, like I said kind of earlier, the community has like really passionate people about football involved, and of course there's always kids who get into football, so their parents get involved too. But like people like, you know, Opie, people like, you know, Ross McCauley, there's tons of guys in there now who've been doing it for years. But yeah, it's just really their passion for the game. Like like I said, like Opie coached me for like over like 10 years basically, and he's coaching for 10 years after I left, and he was coaching for years before that as well. And you know, it's just been, it's just like been a part of the community. Like right now, I know they have really strong younger groups. Like when I was growing up, we always had 2 teams, which is really big for, you know, it's like a town of like 50,000 people or something like that. So we always had 2 teams at each age group, and they took their sink and their dip too for a little bit there. Football kind of was taking a little bit of a hit, but now it's back. They got 2 teams and lots of age groups. They got really strong team at the Pee Wee level, and I believe the junior Bantam level. They got some really good guys. I actually went and watched the game. They were playing Nanaimo. Both the teams were undefeated when I was back home for bye week, and it was electric, man. You guys, Nanaimo went up 21-0. All of a sudden, it's tie game. We're on the 1 yard line. of course, young kids, penalty flags flying everywhere. All of a sudden, the game ends at a draw. A little bit anticlimactic, but it was awesome. Like even the older kids all watching the younger kids play, cheering for them. Like it was awesome. And like, and people in Cowichan, they get excited about their community, you know, like when the families are there, everyone's there, they're all taking it serious. They're all having a good time. They're all, you know, cheering for their team. And you can see kind of how proud these kids are being from Cowichan. And that's a big thing that people from Cowichan kind of ride on is pride from where we are from.
Huge thing. And you mentioned about the alumni coming back. You mentioned about the guys in the 70s and 80s coming back to watch games and all that sort of stuff. I believe that's kind of happening now. I believe some of my former teammates, Evan Rhodes,
Yeah.
I believe Riley Caillou, I believe some of those guys are
They're coaching.
helping. Yeah, I believe some of those guys are helping out. So I think that's also a huge thing of kind of giving back to the program that did a lot of things for you and even you yourself, you know, being being able to be seen at some of these events. And like we were talking off camera, kind of you're a trailblazer, if you will, right, for kids in the Duncan area. I believe I saw last year, I think 3 of the Cowichan kids went to the University of Alberta, if I'm not mistaken. So, more kids are kind of getting that opportunity to, they can make it out of Duncan if that's how you want to say it. I feel like that's maybe a little bit wrongly worded, but there's an opportunity and a pathway if you kind of put your head down, work, and support your community around you. I think it's unfortunate because I'm sure you're aware of the kind of John Barsby being, I guess if you want to call it, my rival. Unfortunately, we did a lot of losing to them through my career, but them being 5 blocks away, it's kind of similar to you. Now that I'm a little bit older, I have some friends that coach at Barsby, some friends that I played junior with. Me going down there on Saturdays and watching their junior bandoms and peewees play and stuff like that, and they got the barbecue going and it smells good, there's food going, and people are talking football and excited and stuff like that. I think that's what ND is missing, unfortunately. And I think when you have that, you do whatever you can to not let it go and continue to build something special. And I really think Cowichan's doing that. Like you mentioned, I don't think they've won, like you said, a championship in a while, but they've still continued to carve out big, good numbers for teams on a yearly basis and continue to line up teams every year. So huge for Vancouver Island football and continue to grow the game here in the Pacific Northwest. So as you kind of get towards the end of your time with Cowichan, when did you kind of decide that maybe football was what you wanted to do after high school?
Well, like I've always been a guy who's wanted to play football my entire life. Like it's never been a question for me. Like it's always been something I've been so passionate about. Like, and like to be honest with you, like winning has been my number one goal forever. Like I never won a championship ever until this Grey Cup. So I played football for 20 years, never won the last game of the year, like never. And to be honest, like that's why I never tried out for things like Team BC and like all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was pretty expensive. We were going to Texas, a bunch of stuff like that. It wasn't Canada Cup like it is now, but I was always like, well, I don't want to get to know these guys because I want to beat these guys. Like, I don't want to be friends with these guys, like even like once we start to get older and you go to Star Bowl and you do things like that, like, yeah, those start to get a little bit more fun. But so that was always my goal. So, and the crazy thing is like being from Cowichan is like, I barely even know that youth sports was a thing until I was like grade 11. And I was like, oh, like because I always just thought D1, like that's, and then NFL, and it's like, yeah, the CFL seems great, but it's like everybody has those big dreams, right? So after my second year of my second year of community, so grade 10, so my first year of midget, I went to Star Bowl, had a pretty good showing. Some of the junior coaches started talking to me, and then after my my second year, I went to Senior Bowl. And yeah, so I ended up my D-line coach there was a great guy from VI. His name's slipping my mind right now, but he helped out a bunch with VI. And so he took me and my mom out and kind of explained things to me. It's like, hey, like we think Brock's a pretty good player. Like I'm not involved in VI right now, but it's like they've been good to me before and whatever. It's just something I want you to consider. Not telling you what to do, but kind of laying out the landscape for me of like, hey, like guys are going to start recruiting you, blah, blah, blah. It was amazing. It was awesome. He really helped me out. And then, so after Senior Bowl, Okanagan was talking to me. Langley was talking to me. Basically every junior team was talking to me. Snoop was out in Calgary, so he was talking to me and after Senior Bowl, I met like Jeff Almahoda for the Rams. He was the head coach at the time. And I was just like, oh, dude, like this is it. Like you're the guy I want to be to play for. Like you're extremely passionate. I I could tell he cared about me and he wanted me to go to the next level. Like Hoda wasn't interested in recruiting guys just to get him to win. Like he's like, no, I'm trying to set these guys up for their best future. So once I met him, I came back, I talked to Opie. Of course, Opie wanted me to come back for my last year of Cowichan, but I was like, I think I'm ready to kind of leave these waters and try to like expand my ability and challenge myself and kind of go to that junior level. And yeah, that's kind of how that transition happened.
So I'm curious. My last question about kind of your growing up stages. Two-part question. Were you a CFL fan growing up? And how do you think we can do, I wouldn't say maybe a better job, but how can we continue to grow the game at that level and continue to grow it for a better and for future generations?
Yeah, I mean, like I've always been a CFL fan. Like growing up, watching like the Lions, watching Dave Dickinson, Travis Lulay, even like Andrew Harris there, like and yeah, I was always a CFL fan. Like I always was a fan of it. I remember always going to families' houses. It's funny. So right after we won the Grey Cup, we're busing to Montreal for the parade, and I'm like, like it's crazy. The one Grey Cup that I remember is that field goal against the Riders, the Alouettes. I'm like, I remember this game like it's like I completely remember it. It was in 2009. I was a kid at my aunt's in Victoria watching the game, and it came down to some craziness, and then it's funny, literally like a week later, I get my Facebook notification of me being like a little kid, like watching the Grey Cup, go Riders. And it's like, oh, it's funny how things kind of change. Obviously the Owls ended up winning that game. But yeah, so I've always been a CFL fan and I feel super honored and proud to be in the league and playing in the league.
Yeah, man, that's good to hear because I think we were kind of maybe lucky that we were probably just on the outside of the how big social media was. I feel like for me, what part of the why I kind of wanted to start the podcast as well is kind of the NFL when kids grow up, right? It's we're starting to I feel like lose those kind of kids that grow up and they're watching our game instead of the NFL, which is not there's no problem with that. I'm as big as an NFL fan as there is probably, but I feel like when you're a little kid and you have you can go to the store and you see Madden or you can play fantasy with your friends and all that sort of stuff. I feel like that kind of maybe brainwashes kids to watch their product instead of ours, and I feel like the CFL is starting to catch up here, but once they I feel like catch up and fantasy is out for the CFL the past few years and all that sort of stuff. They're doing things like we're seeing it this next season, Touchdown Pacific and stuff like that, going to different areas and stuff like that, attracting younger fans. I think they're starting to do good things. I think when that happens, I think the attendance will start to go up in these various cities and stuff like that, and we'll start to see more kids at the grassroots level start to build those fandoms for a whole life instead of. I think the CFL kind of demographic is a little bit older as of right now. I think by the numbers or what people like to say, but I think that's going to start to change as we get some more of these good. I know you're familiar with kind of Showtime and everything they're doing.
Yeah, they're great.
Host of CFL, a lot of good Instagram and kind of social media content creators that are doing a lot of good things for Canadian football. So I think it's only the beginning, and I can't wait to see when it's a few years from now when it's going to be even bigger. So I think that's a huge thing of kind of. Being a young CFL fan, I remember. I'm not too sure if you ever were familiar with like the play with the pro kind of camps where you go over to the Lions and kind of like practice with them, if you will. And I think those need to maybe get brought back a little bit and all that sort of thing. So excited to see what the CFL is going to be doing in the next 5 or 6 years. I think it's going to be some good stuff for the grassroots level. So as you mentioned about kind of transitioning to the Langley Rams, I'm curious. My first question, obviously, I kind of had to throw on the Raiders gear. I know you guys probably had some more recent success than the Raiders, especially when I played there. But as an island guy, why Langley? I was going to throw into the 40-second play clock. I was going to say if you were to cut out the Rams, West Shore or VI, but I decided to stick away from that one. But I'm curious, as a kid, were you ever like driving up to Nanaimo, going to Raider games, driving down to Victoria, going to Rebels games or anything like that? And then just why ultimately Langley?
So remember how my brother came back to play football with me the year after that, he actually went to the Raiders and played. Me and I would go watch his games, watch him play. I went to Raiders games growing up, we had guys in our community who were playing there, like guys like Elliot Jones and stuff like that who were playing for the Raiders. We also had a bunch of ties with the Rebels too. A lot of our coaches and stuff were alumni of it was like Payless Sharks back then, I believe it was, and stuff like that. So, but what happened is So Snoop was there with my brother. They won the Cullen Cup, and then they went on to the national championship. And then Snoop left and went to Calgary. So VI was like in kind of like they were starting a new phase. They had new coaches coming in. They had new everything coming in, and I was fine with it. It was all good, but they kind of made the mistake of recruiting me like I was already going to go there no matter what. You know what I mean? And whereas Langley was like seemed like a, you know, they just went to the championship. They just, you know, they just lost in the Cullen Cup, but they're like hungry for it again. You know, they went to the national championship, just lost to the Hilltops. Boom, then they lose to VI, and they're really interested in bringing me in, and they needed a young guy to come in for them, and VI kind of already had some established veterans and stuff like that, and it just kind of seemed like the right fit for me. Like I said, Hoda did an amazing job of being real, being honest, explaining everything to me, you know, like there's a need for you, but you're going to have to compete. And I've always been that kind of guy like that, like, okay, like there's an opportunity for me, but I'm gonna have to work for it. And that's kind of what I want. Right. So, yeah, Hoda just did an amazing job. And I was like, you know what, like, this is what I want to do. We had, you know, Che was going to Langley. We had like Ethan, like two really good guys in our community league. We had some other guys from Chilliwack, like, and there's a couple of guys from Cowichan that were going over there too. My other interior D lineman, he was going to Langley too. So we were kind of like, you know, kind of these bigger names from community football. And I'm like, well, let's go see what happens. You know, like all our life we've been hearing about this community versus high school, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, I have confidence in these guys. These guys are ballers. So we all went there and we had an amazing year. Like we did. We went to the national championship. Yeah, we had a lot of older guys to help us out, but we were really fueled by our new players that went there. And it was honestly like the best decision for me. I made great relationships with a lot of the coaches there that have lasted for life.
Yeah, Brock, I got to just butt in something that bugs me about the Raiders that you just said there. That I definitely can attest to. I think that they've kind of like how you mentioned about them kind of recruiting you as if that you were already just going to go there with without kind of any persuading or anything like that. I feel like the Raiders still think that they're the Raiders of old. No offense, I might get a little bit of flack for what I'm about to say, but I think this is a good thing, especially because where we are right now. I think this needs to change because they think that they can recruit that like we're the Raiders of old when we used to win Canadian Bowls, and that was a long time ago. And I really feel like you kind of the luster, the shine is kind of off that. I think you need to really put in the groundwork. I'm the biggest supporter. I'm hopeful for that. So I hope people that are listening that don't take this as too much of a slight, but I really think, you know, somebody like you could have been pretty huge to some of those down years around, you know, when kind of Liam was transitioning into kind of taking over things after Jordan and kind of all those pillars left. Especially Snoop. I know Snoop was a big part of that as well. Kind of taking a lot of those pillars as well. It's guys like Jordan Kuziak and stuff like that to Calgary. So I know it was a lot of other things going on, but I think that's a huge thing to why the Raiders are struggling currently. And I would love to see them turning around by putting in some effort to recruit, especially local guys that you don't want to let go, especially to Langley, to be honest, Brock. But you guys, like you mentioned about 2015, very special year for your rookie year. You end up going all the way to the Canadian Bowl against obviously the big powerhouse Saskatchewan Hilltops. Talk a little bit about that year. I know watching Langley Rams of prior years, I believe like those are the kind of Malcolm Williams, Daniel English, like Becker Leg. I'm trying to think of some other guys, but a really good Langley Rams kind of core group of guys. What was that rookie year for you? Like, you know, you're a young kid going into that group and kind of getting to a national championship right away.
Yeah, like so Langley was recruiting me in my grade 12 year, and like I said, I was still a rugby guy, so I actually missed Langley's spring camp, but I still committed to them because I was at rugby provincials with my team. And it's funny because the D-line coach now, like, we're so tight, like, you know, he's one of the only guys I FaceTimed after we won the Grey Cup and stuff like that. We're so tight.
Is that Spagnoletto?
No, so me and Swagno played together. So he was my nose tackle, I was the 3 tech. Yeah, so he's kind of like, who does this kid think he is? He's not coming to our spring camp. Like, you know, like we're like one of these top tier teams, blah, blah, blah. So I get to training camp and so I'm a backup, which is fine, you know? And like, so first game comes in, you know, I get in, we're actually playing the VI Raiders, get like 3 or 4 TFLs. And they're like, all right, okay, like you're the starter now. Like, you know, you did your thing. And then my other boy from Cowichan, he rotated in with me. He's doing his thing too. We were having a really good year. We're having a lot of fun that year. We were roommates with each other and everything. So yeah, we get in and we go VI. which was Colin Cup champions the year before. And then we have Okanagan, who's like, you know, a hungry team, and they're really hungry. Like they've been eager, they've been on the edge, and obviously Okanagan has an amazing program. Like that's junior football, like to a T, you know, like you go there, like sometimes there's sold out games, all that kind of stuff. Like they love their team in Okanagan. So we got VI, Okanagan back to back. Boom, we beat them both 2-0. And then, yeah, and then so we're confident, like we're like, oh yeah, like this is it for us. And then boom, we play VI again, we lose. We play Okanagan, lose to them back to back times, and I'm like, geez, man, like what's going on here? Like what happened? Like, you know, and we're all confident guys, like those community guys who I was talking about, Che and Ethan, they just came off a provincial championship, first one in years. They beat us in the semifinals. Still makes me sick to this day at our own home. And then playoffs come around, we're playing Kamloops, and yeah, so like whatever, I had a pretty decent year that year. I thought I made a good case for All-Star, but they gave it to a veteran guys, which is fine. And then we're playing Kamloops and we're smoking them. Like I can't even remember. I think it was like 45-8 at halftime or something. And we ended up winning the game 48-42. And I thought the whole, it's just some of the scores or whatever, that it's fairly close to along those lines. You'd have to look it up, but
yeah.
And yeah, so I'm like, geez, like, holy, that was tight. Like, you know, and I had a pretty good game. Like, I think I had 2 sacks and a fumble recovery. We had a DN, Dylan Roper from Simon Fraser, and he gave me a scoop and score, man, and I dove on it, and I should have scoop and scored it. I had that big cage face mask like that before and couldn't even see, so I kind of fumbled it and dove on it. And then, yeah, so and then we're going into Okanagan, but it's like Okanagan's beaten Kamloops like 70-0 twice already that year. We smoked them before too, but it's like, you know, that's a little bit of a confidence shaker. And then, so our head coach is like, you know what, we're going up the night before. We go to the Colin Cup. We're getting everyone a hotel, everything. I believe that's the year we brought Dana Matheson in, that new owner, and he's still the owner of the team. He's doing an amazing job there. That's probably one of the reasons why they've had the most success. And then, you know, we kind of all get together. We have like our little breakfast meeting and everything like that. And or the night before the dinner meeting, and kind of guys just sharing stories and stuff like that, and just kind of building up the aura of the championship game against Okanagan. And, you know, Roper actually broke his hand the week before. We had some guys out with some injuries, and we ended up pulling off the upset. It's crazy. Like, you know, yeah. So we go into Okanagan, and they're the heavily favorites. They already had Canadian Bowl tickets printed off and everything. We saw them after the game. Yeah, so we played them really well. We had some vets play out of their minds. And yeah, we ended up winning that game. I will never forget it. Nathan Lund getting the handoff, bounces outside, does the huge dive into the end zone. There's a picture of it, all of us on the sideline. Chase in the back with his hands up like that. Like that one's seen Instagram a lot. So yeah, we pulled it off. And then yeah, and then so we're hosting the national championship. We had SAS coming into town. We obviously knew it was a tall task, but we're so confident that we had that game, and it just kind of slipped away from us. That veteran SAS team was good, and we had to play our best game, and we had a couple offsides on like 3rd and 1s and just stuff like that. Like in championship games, you can't give a team a free ball. You know, it's like make them earn every single first down they have to get, make them earn every single yard. But that game was an eye opener, like honestly, because we were on the national stage, and I felt like I played good. And you know, I was 18 playing against, 18 playing against lots of 22-year-olds and stuff like that. And it was a good eye opener for me, and it really helped me build my confidence going into that next year for Langley, kind of where I had my all Canadian year and got kind of all my scholarships and stuff.
Perfect transition, Brock. So we get into 2015, and you have a coming out party. I believe 14 and a half sacks. I believe it was 1.5 sacks short of the Langley Rams franchise record, if I'm not mistaken, by Evan. Tell us a little bit about that season. You just mentioned you were a CJFL All-Canadian. You ultimately, I don't believe, yeah, I'm sure probably going to the Natty your rookie year, like we're going to go back every year until age out, the age-old thought that goes through your head. I'm going to be the reason why. Obviously, you're not the reason that you didn't go, but tell us about that season, how much fun I'm sure that was of kind of dominating on a weekly basis.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So
you don't have to be humble, Brock, either. You can brag.
No, it's all good. So yeah, no, coming into my next year, Like I said, like my D-line coach Kirby, man, like I love that guy to death. He's amazing. And he kind of was just like sat me down and was just like, listen, dude, like you can take this as far as you want to take it. And this is like an important message to everybody who's in junior, kind of will segue off of it, is like, my defensive coordinator back then would be like, I'd always be like, oh man, like I wish we were playing for Washington, like, 100,000 fans at our games, all this stuff. And he's like, well, just treat this like you're D1. Like you're still playing football, man. Like, and it's important, like as serious as you take it is as serious as it is. The more serious you take your life, the more serious your life is going to be. That's the thing from my defensive coordinator at U of M. And it's true. Like I took junior football so serious, like so serious. Like I wanted to be an all-Canadian. I wanted to be all these things. And I wanted to be a junior guy who goes pro. Like I wanted to be a guy who had scholarships. Like I had that ego inside of me. Like I want to be the best. And I'm not really going to take no for an answer. And I had a good training camp. And then, we played VI week 1 and I had 5 sacks in that game and kind of went to the races from there. And just kind of every single week, like I had my eye set on that 16 and a half. I wanted it. I technically had 21, but we had some not go my way and we had some penalties and stuff like that. So I would have broke the CJFL record, but whatever, it is what it is. It's fine. I'll take second. Evan Foster was a dog and me and him played at U of M together too. So good for him. But yeah, it was kind of it was a bit of a tougher year for us though, because we weren't winning as much, like I'm more on the winning side of things. Yeah, personal stats and everything are great, and it's nice to get your trophies and your praise here and there, but it's like we weren't winning as much, and we went into VI in the playoffs, and I really wanted to win that game, man, and it kind of was bittersweet. We lost, and VI went off to play Okanagan, which went to the national championship. But I mean, like everybody around me, they just helped me out so much, like my defense coordinators, like, like we're just going to cut you loose, man. Like go do your thing. Like we want you to get out of here. We want you to get a scholarship. So it was really nice being cut loose, and it was nice having like a team around me that instilled confidence in me. I had Swag Niletto, like you're saying, beside me. He was the first team All-Canadian the year before. He should have been an All-Canadian again his second year, but he got his All-Star in his praise and he got his scholarship, and he's doing a great job coaching now at Langley there. But yeah, so me and him were just two big boys in the middle there, holding it down. And, he's the big run stopper. I was more of the pass rusher. And yeah, I mean, it was nice, obviously, to kind of make everyone proud around me there. Everyone was super happy for me and stuff. And then it kind of segued me into kind of getting recruited and all that kind of stuff.
I'm not too sure. I feel so bad for a lot of those interior offensive linemen. I'm not too sure how many CJFL offensive linemen have to go against two of those guys on the interior, especially a guy like Alex. Probably not a guy that gets a lot of praise because of the way he plays. A one-tech defensive tackle who does a lot of the dirty work, right? But I'm sure freeing you up for a lot of one-on-ones is a great opportunity, and I'm sure you were very thankful for him being beside you. So I know Alex is a very big, I would say, one of the pillars of kind of BCFC, of kind of being a good player and then transitioning into giving back into the program that did so much for him. I know I played against his brother a little bit. So the family's well established in that community. So if people aren't familiar with your junior days, they probably aren't maybe aware of your transition. Now, you were a defensive tackle, if I'm not mistaken, before you transitioned to flipping to the outside. So can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, were you always on the inside, or did you play a little bit on the outside in kind of your later years at Cowichan?
Yeah. So growing up, like I was always like a heavier kid, and I always played 3-tech. Like I always played that. And so 3-tech defensive tackle. And then, so I was, and then once I hit like grade 10, did a huge growth spurt from like 5'9" to like 6'1". So I just like leaned up and like grew quite a bit. And I played middle linebacker, and I honestly, like my best kind of years at community were like that middle linebacker D tackle spot. So I played middle linebacker for 3 years, and then I went back to D tackle. We had another guy, Wyatt McWatt. You might have played with him at VI. So he was a VI guy, and he was a really good middle linebacker. And I kind of put on some more size and stuff like that. And we're like kind of like, hey, like we're gonna have Wyatt here at Mac, and we'll have you at D tackle. And so and then so once I went to Langley, I played my 2 years at D tackle there. And once I went to U of M, I like got the biggest I was honestly out of shape. Like I think I was a little bit overconfident and stuff like that. So I got up to like 320 pounds, and man, some of those guys just kicked it to me. Like even like, so we got like Justin Lawrence right now. He's our starting center at Montreal. He was at University of Alberta, and him, like Darius Sirocco, he's the center for Toronto now. Like those guys were just beating me up, and like Skeevier, guard for Calgary now. And I was just so out of shape. Like we were playing Calgary and they're driving the field on us. It's the very first game of the year. And they're in hurry up offense. And I'm just like in there at halftime, just ready to puke my guts out. And I was just like, I never want to feel like this again, like in a game, you know? So then kind of in the off season came around and I was like, hey, I'm kind of try to lean out and just kind of get a little bit more versatile here. And then that kind of segued my transition into end from there.
Okay, so let's talk about the BC pipeline to the University of Manitoba because Coach Dobie loves his British Columbia football players, that's for sure. Very
Yeah.
popular guy out west here, likes to recruit obviously at the junior level as well as I know he's well established coming out to the Team BC stuff and keeping his eye on the BC talent. So, was there any other teams in the running, or was it kind of University of Manitoba from the get-go for you?
Yeah, so like no, there was definitely other teams in the running. Like UBC, I was very interested in. Honestly, yeah, UBC. Carleton was talking to me. There, Steve Samara there seemed like he had a lot of good things going on for that program. Yeah, Regina was talking. Like I had like a lot of teams to kind of pick from, but once again, like I was kind of in that same situation where I was in Cowichan, where like I didn't have a whole lot of mentorship to kind of like guide me, like, hey, like, you know, like I didn't have a whole lot of youth sports knowledge. Like I just started kind of catching up with it as I was getting recruited, and I was just like, okay, like, and I was asking teams, you know, like what are the best two conferences? They're like Canada West and the Q out here in Quebec kind of were felt as like the more talent heavy leagues. You can argue that the OUA has a lot of great top end talent too now. So, but yeah, so, and my head coach, Jeff Alamahota, and my defense coordinator, those two guys are University of Manitoba products. So they, of course, have a good tie there. But that doesn't mean that they were completely in their corner. Like they were giving me honest truths about going to U of M and stuff like that. And yeah, so Dobie came out and he started recruiting me. He did a really good job. And yeah, so it kind of came down to UBC, Carleton, and Manitoba at the end, and Manitoba's who I sided with.
Awesome, man. So you end up spending, I believe was it 5 seasons there with the COVID pandemic? Um, Tell us a little bit, I guess, about your experience with University of Manitoba. Ultimately, nothing, and the competitor that I know you are, I'm sure that you're going to come back down to. You guys probably didn't win it all, which is what you maybe hold the most. But tell us a little bit about your time there. I think that they have a strong, rich tradition of football there, of
Yeah.
producing very talented next level athletes to go to, even the NFL, like David Onyemata and stuff like that. So tell us a little bit about your experience at the University of Manitoba up until, I guess, 2019, your supposed last year.
Yeah. So like, yeah, the reason why I went to Manitoba is because their turnover of guys, like especially at the D line position that were going pro. And I like honestly think every year that I was there, somebody got signed or drafted to play pro who was a D lineman. So we had a lot of really good D linemen like going through and yeah, so like I got recruited kind of to replace Dave Onyemata. Obviously, you can't really replace that guy, but that was the that was the goal. And yeah, so I came in and yeah, and like that, like I was the day one starter there. They kind of invested in me because like honestly, I had a shaky start to my career there. Like I said, I was out of shape and I was going against guys who there's definitely a jump from junior to U sports. You know, kind of those top end pool players of U sports are going to be, or of junior are going to kind of be those fringe U sports to starter guys, depending on kind of where your talent is at. So, yeah, just like I honestly needed to kind of get like integrated into that league. So it's good. They invested in me. They rolled through me through some hard times and stuff like that, and made me into a better player. But yeah, so after my first year, yeah, so they have a great strength and conditioning program at U of M. Like I don't know if we're the only school, but I think back then we were the only school that had our actual own strength and conditioning. Like we had our own gym and everything in our stadium, like that we didn't share with any other athletes. So you had like 24/7 access to a gym and able to do your modalities and all that kind of stuff there. So yeah, in my first year, I just really took like nutrition and strength and conditioning and all that kind of stuff serious because that's something I'd been lacking in my life. Like I just wasn't really that informed on it. And I didn't have a great understanding. So yeah, and then I kind of like I lost like 60 pounds or something like that and played played my first game at D tackle, which I had a good game, but we had a need at end, and I switched out to end there, and was kind of like, okay, like, you know, there is now more, but back then there wasn't so many Canadian D tackles, and I'm like, well, it's going to be kind of tough to just make the CFL off of one thing, you know, like, whereas if I play end, like right now I have a big special teams role on my team, and it's like, and I took that into consideration. I'm like, well, if I get leaner and I get faster and I get, you know, like, I'm a pretty quick guy for how big I am. I wonder if, like, how that can work out for me if I make that kind of full transition to end and get into like more of a special teams body and everything like that. And yeah, so kind of made that decision. Going into my third year, really locked in on end and everything. And I had a good year, got all-star that year, was elected to the East-West Bowl, which is kind of that all-star game, that East versus West, which was a great time out at Carleton. Ended up doing pretty well there. I got 2 sacks, 2 TFLs, and then went kind of into the draft from there. And yeah, and then Montreal called my number there in the 8th round. I was a little bit stressful, started to get towards the end, but honestly, I'm so happy they drafted me. Like, they've been invested in me, and we've had a great relationship ever since coming here. So
Something that jumped off to me, Brock, that you mentioned there is kind of realizing the special teams, I guess, kind of specialists, I guess you could bring, or kind of you could contribute on special teams. That's something that's obviously a very smart kind of observation by you, because so when I was watching a little bit or researching a little bit about you, coming across some of your highlight videos, obviously you put on your, I believe it's the 4th year highlight, a lot of your special teams kind of coverage highlights and stuff like that, and being able to kind of you know, coming off a East-West Bowl, you were a very established player, kind of not that you could say like you could brush it off and be like, I'm not going to play special teams, but you could very well, like, I'm sure there's guys that do that, right? And kind of being a very selfless player and being like, no, I'm not bigger than anybody else on this team. I'll go run down special teams. And if you see, man, you have quite the motor and run down there harder than a lot of guys that, you know, are smaller than you. So it's very cool of me to kind of hear that's something that you picked up at an early time in your University of Manitoba kind of time there. So the other thing about Manitoba that you mentioned about the facilities inside the stadium, I feel like they have a very professional kind of environment. Obviously, they share the facility with the Blue Bombers and stuff like that. That's, I feel like, a leg up that they also have on some other programs around the country. Maybe not winning as much as maybe natties as maybe you want to, but they set you up to maybe be your best at the next level. So I'm curious, you go to your East-West Bowl. I believe that was in after the 2019 season, if I'm not mistaken. And then the world obviously shuts down with the COVID-19 pandemic. Selfishly and unselfishly, I was very thankful that I never had to go through the COVID pandemic. My last year playing football was 2019, and then things kind of happened. I think a lot of people were unfortunately kind of maybe robbed or kind of just cut short of their career when everything happened like that. So take us through that point in your life and kind of hearing about the news of the pandemic and not having a season and kind of your mentality from there.
yeah, so like it's crazy because like I like remember this day like crazy how it
Vividly.
sticks out too. Yeah, so I remember like the Rudy Gobert like coughing
Yeah.
onto that mic and doing all that stuff. And and then all of a sudden I just remember seeing like, whoa, the NBA season's canceled. I'm like, what's going on here? And we just got invited to the we got invited to the combine, I think in January or something like that. And it was like 2 weeks before the combine was supposed to happen. And I was one of the people who was very lucky to get a national combine invite. I didn't have to go through the regional phase to get into that national. So I think I was like one of 34 guys that got invited to that. And so the regional combine's going on while they make these announcements in Ontario. So all the OUA guys so all the Eastern guys, I guess, so the Q and the OUA and the AUS, they're all at a combine right now. And I call my defense coordinator. I'm like, hey man, like, what do you think's going to happen with the combine? And he's like, well, if the NBA is canceling, like, dude, like, I think the CFL is going to have to, you know, the NBA's got how many more resources than us, and look what they're doing. So we're going to kind of follow suit. And I was like, we'll see. And, you know, I'm like, their combine's going on right now. And so they did, I think, a padded portion, took their pads off, and then they just said, no, we're done. Combine's done. Like, so they canceled that combine. Our combine got canceled. And man, like, a lot of people don't know this. When you go to the combine, you spend hours and hours and like probably equating to days and almost months of doing drills that have nothing to do with football. Like you train your 40, you train your bench, you train these like L tests, and you're doing it every day. Every single day you're doing these drills, getting in there, the proper technique, how I can shave a millisecond off, because a millisecond goes a long way in these drills. And then it's like, okay, now we don't have a combine, and it's like we just did all that work and all that just for this one day of these drills, and it's like, oh, so it was definitely like a shot in the foot, you know. You're like, oh, this sucks. Like I'm not going to get to kind of show my skills off to coaches and stuff like that, and you know, and then coaches are just going to have to kind of recruit us off of our film. But yeah, it's a crazy time. Like we shut down, and Manitoba was very heavy with it right away. Boom, just closed everything down. Like nobody can do anything, whatever. Like school's all going online. Yeah. And then and then all of a sudden you're doing all your draft interviews on Zoom, and you don't even know what Zoom is, and you're doing all these calls and everything like that. And not to take away from it, I mean, it's still amazing. You're still going through the draft process and everything like that. But it's just such a weird time in your life. Like there's so much craziness going on. Like I actually went back to BC and stayed with my like super close friend of mine. I call them family, and I went and stayed with them, stayed at a nice big home gym and everything like that. And we just kind of Rocky Balboa'd it, got the iron out, and you know, hitting the heavy bag and just kind of doing whatever we could, and we made the best of the situation. But yeah, it was tough, obviously, because you're looking forward to this like pinnacle moment of your life, and then it gets delayed by like a year and a half almost, right?
Yeah, man. So unfortunate. Like I mentioned, selfishly and unselfishly, selfishly and just glad I never had to go through that, because I think it was somewhat unfair to a lot of people that kind of lost their careers, or that's where their careers ended, because they just didn't know where kind of the future was headed, and obviously, like you mentioned, it was kind of a year and a half or somewhere around that range till things kind of you actually got a little bit of confidence that there was going to be kind of a light down the tunnel. So it's just unfortunate that kind of had to go on and kind of ruin a lot of people's dreams and aspirations, I'm sure. So as that happens, you end up getting drafted to the Montreal Alouettes, I believe, in the 2020 draft, and then decide to come back to the University of Manitoba for your fifth and final year of eligibility. What led to that decision, and how was your just draft day overall in that experience?
Yeah, so the draft day was great. So the same thing, I was at my that same family friend's house, and it was right in the middle of lockdown and everything like that. And it was like, honestly, it was kind of a scary time. It was kind of a sad time. Like I was spending the draft not by myself. I was with them, but I wasn't with my mom. I wasn't with my brother and stuff like that. And then, you know, they were kind of like, you know what, like let's bring your family over. So my family came over for it. My brother and my mom, we came and we did our draft, and it was honestly it was a stressful night because, like I said, it was kind of coming towards the end there, and I was like, holy man, like I was not expecting this. Like everything was kind of pointed at me going quite a bit sooner, and then whatever, it's fine. It's just about getting your foot in the door. Like anybody listening to this, if you're drafted in the first round or the eighth round, everybody gets the same opportunity. You know, I've seen eighth rounders be making it over first rounders and second rounders, you know, guys getting sent back to university. So everybody gets kind of the same opportunity. And if you make your mark, you're going to stick. So yeah, so basically that whole COVID year goes by, and I'm training with Rugby Canada out in Langford. So they called me kind of, hey, if football doesn't work out, we'd love to have you around. So I went and trained with them and stuff. And then, you know, July comes and they're like, hey, we got football camp, let's go. So I come to camp, and since it was COVID, we didn't have a preseason game. We didn't have a bunch of stuff. So the team was kind of already cut out. I feel like it kind of already was. Like it was like, okay, these are the guys we have. You know, we have our other guys who are our later round draft picks, and we're going to give them an opportunity. But we're kind of more looking at this season right here. It's a shortened season. It's everything was kind of mayhem. So go to camp, have a pretty good camp and stuff. Like, you know, like Danny Machocha, our GM, he was happy with me. He's like, you know, we just want to send you back to university, one more year of development, and we'll bring you back next year. And yeah, like I was obviously disappointed at the time and stuff, and I wanted to be on the team, and I wanted to take that step forward and kind of have that challenge. But I was like, okay, sounds good. But usually what happens is training camps in May, right? And then if you get sent back to university, you really have until like August to decide if you want to come back to university. If any teams call you as a free agent, anything like that, you have those options. Well, in my year, that training camp was in July. So I was done in July, like 28th or something like that. And I had until like August 2nd to enroll in university. So I didn't have any time for myself to be like, okay, do I want to test free agency? What do I want to kind of do here? And I had one more year left in my degree, and, you know, and I wasn't going to sit out of football. It's like, you know, I just worked so hard to kind of, for that whole year, focusing, you know, going through all the COVID stuff, like, no, I'm going to be a football player. Like, I'm going to be a pro. And then, so I was like, hey, I'm going to come back to university. So I called Coach Dobie, called Coach Pierre. I was just like, hey guys, like, you know, like if you guys want to have me back, like, I'd love to be back. And they're like, for sure. Like, training camp kind of starts in like, you know, 2 days. Like, can you come out? And I'm like, yeah, like, but like, I really need to get all my courses lined up but like, luckily, like I had to take some courses I wasn't that interested in, but luckily, they counted towards my degree, and I could kind of get into my degree or get my degree finished and go back to school for 1 year. And yeah, it was a great year. It was the best year that we had. Like statistically, it was the best year that we had at U of M, and it was awesome. We were winning a lot of really good games. We made it to the conference championship, the Hardy Cup there. And yeah, that's kind of how that went.
So as we transition to your professional career, I'm curious whether it be your first training camp, maybe it's the 2022 camp. What was your welcome to the CFL moment, whether it's going against one of those bigger offensive linemen that you're talking about that you saw in your U Sports days, or maybe it was maybe your first game or something like that? Is there anything that comes to mind, maybe learning a different type of playbook, anything like that? What was maybe your welcome to the CFL moment?
Yeah, so in 2021, when I went to training camp, yeah, there's definitely, you know, it's not like it's so far fetched though. Like guys from U Sports can play in the CFL, but you got to level your game up again, right? It's like you're taking the next step. So, yeah, we had a huge offensive tackle, Tony Washington, established in the league for a long time. And like he has a short set that's like famous, you know, like he takes that kick step and then he's massive, like huge human, and just punches as hard as he can. And yeah, like U Sports O lineman, not so much of that going on in my career. So yeah, so we're one-on-ones like second or first day, and I'm lined up on this guy, like, okay, like I'm gonna show him what's up. Like, here we go. And he took that short set and he punched me so hard. Luckily I kept my feet, but I was out of the picture for sure. I wasn't getting anywhere. So then we went back and I won the next rep against him, but that was kind of my moment. And then we're on special teams, and I'm on scout team punt, and Alex Gagne, my boy, he's our special teams captain now. Coach was like, hey, we're going 50%. And, you know, 50% at this level is kind of whoever takes 50%, whoever doesn't take 50%, you know? And so I do my 2 kicks and I punch him, and he just grabs in, and we call it mauling, where you just, guy's not going anywhere. And I'm like trying to shed him, kind of like getting mad, like, yo, what are you doing? It's 50%, it's 50%. And he's just like, he's laughing, just mauling me, like making me look so bad on film. And I'm like, okay, like I'm used to U Sports here. Like I take my 2 steps and I punch, and the guy basically falls over, and I just get out and get to go make the tackle here. And I got a guy who's paid to block, you know, just locking me up, laughing in my face as I'm getting mad. And I'm like, all right, like I gotta work on these special team skills. Like my athletic ability is not just gonna get me where I want to go here now. I got to really work on this, because these guys are getting paid, and Gagne is a dog. Like he's famous for doing this, you know, like he's a beast. So yeah, those were kind of my 2 moments. And then yeah, so yeah, just kind of learned from those, and it was like, all right, like I got to kind of play on my feet here and, and then be able to get out of these tough situations.
I love to hear those stories, especially for someone that's never been at that level. It's always good to hear kind of those funny stories of welcome to the professional sports level. But I'm curious, how has Montreal been for you? You know, obviously a Vancouver Island boy, you obviously go over to school in Winnipeg, but being across the country pretty much, how has that been for you? Pretty much finding your second home, if that's maybe what you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, like Montreal's different than like everywhere else in Canada. I would say, like, you know, playing in the CFL and playing in U Sports, you got to travel around a lot, right? You got to go to Western Canada, and especially being in the CFL, you go everywhere across Canada. And moving from the island to Winnipeg, not so much of a difference. You know, there's still similar restaurants. There's the same restaurants. There's the same traffic laws. Everything like that's all the same. Like the only thing that's different is they got a lot of red light cameras there, and you'll have to pay your tickets driving through those accidentally. But yeah, so but when you come to Montreal, like everything is different. Like the chain restaurants aren't the same. Obviously, the language isn't the same. You know, the mannerisms, the way that people carry themselves is different. Like everything's kind of different here. More European vibe, more A lot of like nightlife vibe and stuff like that. Like I'm not a huge nightlife guy, but yeah. So getting into Montreal last year, I lived downtown, and downtown's much more English speaking, much more yeah, just kind of like city life and very busy. Like this is the busiest place I've ever been in my life. Like, you know, you go, I had to drive from the airport at 10:30 at night the other night, and there's traffic, bumper traffic. Like, you know, you don't see that even in Vancouver when I was playing in Langley. It's like you don't really see that often. Yeah. If you catch a highway at 5 a.m, you're probably going to be good for a bit, right? So here's just very busy, but it's really been amazing. Like the city loves us. Like kind of as we were talking earlier about that kind of grassroots football thing in the CFL and trying to get viewership up and stuff like that. It really depends on where you are, because if you're in somewhere like Winnipeg or you're in somewhere like Montreal or Saskatchewan, you know, they have huge CFL fan bases and stuff like that. So being here has been amazing. Like they love us here. Our game day atmosphere is sick. Like everything is sick. Like our fans love us. Like winning the Grey Cup here was amazing. Like our parade was amazing. Like, yeah, like it was awesome. We're riding through the town. You know, you got construction workers. Everybody's all happy. All the business people, you can see them in the sky rises all waving at us, and like huge fleet of people following us in that parade. And we get to a stage and they all call us up on stage. And like, yeah, it like honestly was something I would have never like imagined. I didn't even know about. I'm like, holy, this is like sick. But yeah, Montreal has been awesome.
I got to ask, how was the French?
So honestly, like when growing up, like people from Quebec get a hard rap because we're like, oh, like if you don't speak French, like they're rude, they're whatever, they're blah, blah, blah. But it's not like you just, yeah, like it's, you kind of have to show your respect, like greet people in French and then tell them, you know, you're not the best at speaking French. Like, do they speak English? Yeah, it's all good. You know what I mean? Like, and especially downtown, like you'll walk around and you'll hear more people speaking English. But the further, like I live out in Rosemont, it's called. It's like I guess like a sub city of Montreal, still on the island, but it's much more French here. But it's fine. Like, you know, people will come up to you speaking in French. You try to kind of grab a couple words and then kind of be like, hey, like, I don't really speak French. Or if you can answer them quickly, you just kind of do it and stuff like that. Like, you know, you have to be a part of the city as much as the city has to be a part of you.
That's cool, man. That's cool to hear that the people of Montreal seem like really genuine and down to earth people. So let's get into the celebration this year. Obviously, you guys come into the year. You know, we got to saw the clip of Cody in the locker room and stuff like that. You guys, I believe, were not picked very highly coming into the year and stuff like that. Some pretty big underdogs. How has this year been for you guys? I would imagine this has probably been pretty sweet for you guys, especially you know, the University of Montreal topping it off as well. Pretty big party in the Montreal there. So how has this year been for you guys winning the Grey Cup?
Yeah, like obviously it was a little bit of a roller coaster. We went on that like 3-game winning streak, 4-game losing streak, like just kind of up and down like this. But yeah, like, you know, we made adjustments and we made changes, and the CFL's most important is to, you know, catch hot at the right time, get hot at the right time. Like we saw last year, like Winnipeg went like 16-2 and they lost to the 9-9 Argonauts, like, or whatever they were, 10-8 or whatever. So it's just about catching that heat at the right time. And we knew that, like, we knew we were a good team. We knew we had to make adjustments. We kept working. Like we played 12 games in 10 weeks, grinded that out. Like went on an 8-game winning streak to kind of, I think it was actually maybe a 9-game winning streak to kind of close out the Grey Cup there. But yeah, it was amazing. Like, you know, we got additional pieces throughout the season, kind of brought some guys on that were huge different makers for us. Like, you know, we got our Sean Lemons, our Darnell Sankeys, the Reggie Stubblefields. Like, you know, those guys came off the couch, which is crazy, but they came off the couch and instant impact right away. Like Lemon just like, he just gets the quarterback and, you know, and it's amazing to watch and amazing to learn from. But yeah, so yeah. And kind of, you know, going into Hamilton, in the first game of the playoff, it's like, you know, we've already beat you guys 4 times. We're confident we're going to do it a 5th. And it's hard to beat teams like that. Like Hamilton's a good team. They're a tough team, man. They're a physical team. You know, they find a way to win games and stuff like that. And they got some ballers on their team. So we were just excited to have them at home again. You know, last year we had them in the playoffs at home. That home atmosphere in the playoffs is second to none here. Like that city's rocking. And then, so yeah, we get that win. We go into Toronto. And Toronto, they killed us in the first game that we played them in BMO. Like they smoked us, and you know, we had the right game plan for them, and then we get into the Grey Cup, and yeah, we knew it's going to be an uphill battle against Winnipeg. It's like, you know, they've been there this is their 4th year straight. They got a 2-time MOP at the helm there. And yeah, but we had, like I said, we had confidence in us. Like, yeah, we don't have the awards, we don't have the accolades, we don't have a lot of stuff, but we have the work ethic, and we worked all year, outside, in the snow, in the rain, didn't matter. We came up to work. We had to get practice canceled on us once because of lightning. Like, that's it. Like, we were ready to work, and we got into that game, and we started off a little slow. They went up 10-0 on us, and then 17-7, get that goal line stand, and we went into the locker room at halftime, and there wasn't like a blink of an eye, and we're playing until that last whistle blows, and it obviously showed, like Phil Pot catching that touchdown at the end, Cody delivering a strike. Cody was out there playing like unbelievable, man. Probably the best game I've ever seen him play, and that's the Cody that we knew we had all year, and we were so confident in him, and then yeah, we get that Grey Cup win, and it's almost surreal. It's like, wow, like 20 years of ball, and like this is at the biggest stage, we get it, and it was amazing.
So you mentioned I'm a little bit bitter. I can't lie, Brock. You mentioned about the Lemonator. Obviously, he was up in Kamloops for a matter of days before getting shipped to Montreal, which is I won't even go down that path. But he ends up being a very significant addition to the roster. Talk a little bit about the leaders in your guys' locker room with Sankey coming as well, Marc Antoine Dupois. Talk about some of those veteran leaders that kind of led the way, or were the tip of the spear, if you will, on defense.
Yeah. So I mean, Lemon, day one, like the guy's 35 years old, man. Like, he's gonna have so much information to share with people and so much knowledge that he's gained to the game, and he's a confident dude, and he should be, So he came in day one, and basically he didn't command the room. He earned the respect of the room, and he's a respectable guy, and he's a fun guy to be around, and he's like, he's always casual, keep it casual, keep it casual. You know what I mean? There's no stress. It's all good. Like, we're getting to the quarterback, it's just like, keep your rushes casual, just flowy, nice, like calm. It's all good. Like, just always trying to help everybody around him and learn and grow and kind of make plays to kind of give us more trust from our defensive coordinator too. Like our coach Thorpe, he did an amazing job this year. He trusted Lemon so much, and it's nice to see somebody from your position group who's on such a connected level with your defense coordinator kind of showing you the way to do it. So yeah, he came in right away, and he lit a fire. And then we get Sankey like week 15 or something like that. I think it was week 15. Yeah, super late. Sankey, same thing, comes in, and like, it's funny. He's like, yeah, we're going to win every game and then win the Grey Cup. Like, I'm sure you probably heard that quote a million times, but the message that he said in a podcast during Grey Cup week is like, yeah, of course I believe that. And if I'm the one who's out, then I shouldn't be here, or you shouldn't be here. So what are we trying to do here? I want to win. So yeah, I'm going to be confident. And if you don't believe that, you shouldn't be here, or I shouldn't be here. And that's something that stuck with us right away. Like he had the confidence right away. Like, yeah, we're here to win the Grey Cup. And like, that was from week 15. And then yeah, Dupois is more of a play style leader. Like he's a player's, like, everybody loves Dupois too, but he's more like to kind of lead by play rather than lead by talk. He is our free safety, so he commands our coverages and stuff like that. But yeah, like, I mean, dude, Dupois is the fastest guy in the league, and I don't think there's a question about it. It's like, if you throw a pick to that guy, you better start sprinting to the goal line because he's getting out of there, and he made like play after play after play. All three of those guys made play after play after play. And then, just kind of, we followed suit and kind of, took him in. We obviously had playmakers everywhere before they came, but it's like they fit right in, and we kind of they hopped on the bus and we just kept driving,
Yeah, man, he's an assassin back there. That Dupois. I enjoy watching him when I'm tuning into Montreal Alouettes games every once in a while. So take us to what we saw, obviously, the following days with the Fajardo speech. Was how captivated you have the room? Obviously, we got to saw it, and everyone who watched, I'm sure, had goosebumps. Like myself, you mentioned about that was the best you've seen Cody in your time playing with them. So what was that kind of? The following, or I guess the days before, and kind of the days leading up to the Grey Cup.
Yeah, so Cody's like Cody's not the loudest guy in the room, you know what I mean? But he's part of the boys. Like, we're playing ping pong, like he's pickleball, ping pong, like he's doing all that kind of stuff. And like, yeah, Cody's had his couple speeches here and there, but like, to be honest, like, I was not expecting that when he got up to talk, because like, even like when he he smacks his hand down on the table, like I just looked away for a second and turned back and was like, oh shit, like Cody's jacked up right now, like And he didn't lie, man. That was the thing. Like, he went up there and he's like, man, I haven't beat Kolaros. I haven't done this. I haven't done that. Well, like, just watch this week. Watch what's going to happen this week. And right away, the whole room was like, boom, locked in on him. It was just like, all right, like, you know, like if Cody's up here giving his heart and everything, like, who am I not to do the exact same? Who am I not to feel the part of that moment? And who am I not to have the confidence that we are going to perform this upset and we are going to, you know, arguably have the best playoff run that any CFL team's ever had. Like, who else has done, who else did the things we did, knocked off a 16-2 team, MLP quarterback, you know, went in against one of the greatest dynasties in CFL history, beat them in the final. So, I mean, yeah, like the leading up to the Grey Cup week is all about kind of limiting distractions, you know, locked in. You're there for a reason. Yeah. Enjoy your moments, but be there for a reason. Take it all in, but know you're there for a reason and know you should be there. You know, like, we're here to win and I should be here because I deserve to be in this position, you know? So that was our focus the entire week, getting good work in. You know, we still practiced hard. We still did all the things we needed to do. And then, yeah, you know, we just kind of had a couple extra speeches here, a couple extra little things here. But at the end of the day, a championship game is just the same as any other game. And if you look at it anything different, then you're kind of a fool, you know? Like, our coach was like, you know, if you change anything for this game, then like, he said, fuck you. He's like, take this thing serious. Like, honestly, like, yeah, like, it's just another football game. Don't get it all twisted. Don't get all these emotions. Don't get all that stuff. We're here. We got here by doing what we do, and we're going to win the game by doing what we do. And that's what it was. And what I tell everybody is that's the fastest football game I've ever played in my entire life. Like, that last drive when it was 2nd and 18 and I looked up and there's a minute left, I was like, holy, I did not know this is the last drive of the game. Like, I was like, all right, like, here we go. Let's see what happens. You know, Cody gets that huge run, throws a go ball on 3rd and 5. We connect. And then it was like, all right, here we go. Tyson for the win. Let's get it.
I think a part of that too, Cody's speech is kind of, we hear it a lot, but the manifestation part of things of kind of, you know, watch this. I'm gonna do this, right? Like you mentioned, he wasn't lying about some of the things that he was saying, but he was manifesting. Watch this. I'm gonna prove you guys wrong. So, love that speech. I think, unfortunately, Brock, I will be honest. I did pick the Bombers. I'll be honest, but if that video comes out before the Grey Cup, I am hammering the Montreal Alouettes after that speech, for how electric that was. That being said, to kind of, I guess, close out a little bit on you, I was going to ask, so when I had Jamin on, I thought from what I read that he was going into his free agency year. That being said, I believe that they kept things under somewhat quietly when they extended him this past offseason. So according to him, he is actually extended for a few more years. I believe you are entering your free agent season, or no? So you had the – yeah, can you explain, Brock?
Yeah, so like how it works is when you're drafted now, it used to be a 1+1. So you were not guaranteed, but you were under contract for 1 year and then you have a team option in your second year. Whereas now it's a 2+1. So it's a team option though. Like you're 2 years under contract, third year is an option if the team wants to pick you up. That's a little bit different. In the NFL, it's a player and a team option. So you can decline as a player and then the team has to kind of go about how they want to. Whereas in the CFL, you don't have the option. It still is like a mutual thing. Like, you know, if you're not happy where you're at, your team's not going to want to keep you, right? So, yeah, so things have been going good at Montreal. And yeah, so I'm on my option year, which is my third year. But like I'm under contract. I'm signed for this year. And next year, I'll be going into free agency.
Awesome to hear, man. It's a little bit harder to find the CFL contract side of things. There's no spot track and over the cap and all that sort of thing for the CFL. That being said, talking about you a little bit, is there anything going into this offseason that maybe you want to add to your game, whether it maybe be some more techniques, watching film, or kind of adding anything to your game specifically?
Yeah, so like I said, I have a big role in special teams. I'm on all our special teams. So, yeah, going into so obviously being a defensive player, blocking has not been a huge part of my arsenal for a long time. And I mean, I get the job done and stuff like that, but I just really want to be as dominant at blocking as I kind of am in the coverage game. Like, I do a good job on punt kickoff here. So I'm just trying to kind of get my blocking to that level now too. So kind of all four across the board can kind of be at that same kind of gold standard for myself. Yeah. So just kind of this year, I'm going to be doing some more fullback drills and stuff like that, working on those techniques. And then, man, I was close to blocking like 4 punts at the end of the year. So it'd be great to kind of get that off my checklist there. So Yeah, and then I mean, you got to do everything in the off season still. Like I want to get bigger, stronger, faster. That's kind of the goal. So we're gonna be hitting the weights, hitting the track. But yeah, kind of blocking is I want to bring that up to that kind of next level there.
Awesome, man. And that's so cool to hear of you, you kind of not go straight to, your individual position. I can make an impact in another area as well as my individual position, right? Like you mentioned about being on all four special teams units, as well as having to contribute on defensive snaps too, man. So that's super cool and kind of takes us a little bit into your kind of work ethic and kind of mindset. So super cool. I'm curious, as you guys kind of, do you think maybe that Montreal can maybe snowball this a little bit into next year? Obviously, bringing back Lemon and a few other guys. You guys have done it now. You guys have that confidence, that swagger with you. How much do you guys think this will carry over into next season? I know, it's a different season and all that sort of stuff, but I feel like you guys can also kind of carry that swagger that we've seen from Toronto, Winnipeg, the last few Grey Cup champions.
Yeah. Yeah, so like we won the Grey Cup on Sunday, and we had a team meeting on Tuesday, I believe, at 10 a.m. Just kind of like, hey, blah blah blah. Well, the overall gist of the meeting was we're working on next year already. Like everybody's biggest fear, I guess you could say, or worry is not repeating right now. So we're a super motivated group right now. And yeah, like, our guys, we don't want nothing short of what we had this year, and we're looking to improve. So, of course, like we're 100% confident that we're going to redo the job here and get the job done again. Obviously it takes a lot of work, and you kind of have to not fantasize about the Grey Cup. You kind of got to fantasize about week by week by week. And that work, as cliche as it is about the journey. It's not about the destination, because if the second you start thinking about something so far ahead, you're not winning today, you're worried about winning tomorrow, kind of thing. So, yeah, like we're 100%, we've enjoyed our win, and we've enjoyed those things. And, but a lot of guys, like I'm pretty sure all of us and front office is working on making sure that we secure it again next year.
Well said, man. Well said. Like last year, right? Like you mentioned about kind of the ups and downs. You guys won some, lost some. I think that the thing that you guys will probably be able to fall back on, maybe it comes to a playoffs next year. If, it's in a hard moment, adversity. You could look to, right to the left of you. We've been here before, boys. We can kind of make it through these moments, these tough moments, playoff moments, going down the stretch. So I think it'll definitely help you guys out. And maybe you'll make a return to BC next year in the Grey Cup. So my
Yeah.
final message, Brock, before we get out of here, buddy. Like I mentioned off camera, is kind of why I wanted to start this podcast, is just kind of be, I guess, like a springboard for kind of younger athletes that want to get a little bit more access to Canadian football players. What would kind of be your message to younger kids that maybe not even are football players in general, but just young athletes that maybe want to find a way out of their smaller communities, like a Duncan, right? And can make more of themselves. They don't have to be professional athletes, but maybe they can go to school and learn to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it may be, and get a degree out of it, and kind of how expensive school is, right? With student loans and kind of how much debt you can be in. I think athletics, the best part about that is it can kind of be a tool for you to kind of go into the next part of your life if that doesn't happen in a professional level. So what would be maybe a message to some younger kids around Vancouver Island, BC, to maybe just keep pushing, and you can find a way if you just put your head down and have a strong work ethic?
Yeah, I mean, like the key thing is what you just said at the end there is your work ethic, right? And like I kind of said earlier, is it's just to take it serious, like to limit your distractions, to limit all those things around you. Like me, like I've always been a football number one kind of guy, so my brain has always thought about like how is this going to affect football in my sense, you know what I mean? So yeah, like if you're pursuing a goal or a dream, is I like to call them goals rather than dreams, but it's to just take it serious and to believe in yourself and to keep working as hard as you can, expand that horizon, like me being from Duncan, I didn't have a whole lot of people who could share that insight with me and stuff, but I believed that, as I get further and grow and grow and grow, keep growing, keep growing, keep growing, don't take that no for an answer. You're eventually either going to get the opportunity to prove whether you have the skill set to be there or not, right? And you kind of have to continue to grow and continue to work. And yet at the end of the day is you kind of have to look in the mirror and reflect on the stuff that you need to work on to get to those levels, and to be honest with yourself. Like, don't just believe that something's going to change because it changes, like, oh, next year I'm going to be a great football player, continuing the same habits that I had before. I'm going to be a great student, continuing the same habits that I had before. It's not true. You got to keep growing, right? Like, if you're a C student and you're trying to be an A student, well, you got to look in the mirror and figure out what's doing that. Like, are you not studying hard enough? Are you not focusing hard enough on the things that matter the most? And you have to put those things first. Like, my buddy, we were talking in the off season, we were talking to some younger kids, and he plays for BC Keenan LaFrance, and he's like, well, what's the number one thing that you would tell people to be successful? And he's like, well, it has to come first. You know, every decision that you make has to impact that. Like, okay, yeah, all my friends want to maybe go out and have a drink and do all that kind of stuff. I can't really do that. I got to do my yoga. I got to get my lift in, maybe study the playbook, watch some film, even play a little bit of Madden, you know, like trinkle all of those things in together, whether, you know, you're becoming a science major in university, watching some videos on YouTube to try to help yourself out, to get a better understanding, to kind of enjoy the process rather than just look at it as work. It's like, oh, maybe I can find a way to make this easier for myself and kind of work at the right things that are going to produce on the field or in the classroom or whatever field in your business. But really the big thing is just continue to work as hard as you possibly can in it and continue to grow and always remember that your goal is the number one focus, whether social pressure or whatever else kind of comes in between. There's always fun to be had. And like, trust me, going out with your friends is fun. All that kind of stuff's fun. But a Grey Cup parade, I've never had something as fun as that. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of have to put those sacrifices in to kind of get a more prosperous future, I guess I'd say.
Very well said, man. I think the thing that sticks out to me is kind of like you mentioned about the you know, lack of resources where you grew up and stuff like that. You know, a lot of people could, you know, quit, but you know, you found a way out of your situation, right? You could have said, you know, I don't have really you know, we see these things around, not so much maybe when we were growing up, but you know, the 7-on-7s and stuff like that. I know you were a D lineman and stuff like that, and maybe not dabble too much, but you don't have like that you know, 7-on-7 and stuff like that. So it's like you could have very well maybe, you know, quit at football and be like, okay, this is not for me. You found a way to, you know, get better, like you mentioned about kind of other avenues, whether it be, you know, watching the CFL on Saturdays and Friday nights, or when other people are going out or playing Madden and stuff like that, watching your film over again, opposed to, you know, having 0 minutes on huddle, stuff like that. So just very well said, man. And like I said just before we got on here, man, I really enjoyed having the conversation and just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of you know, share your story as well as be a trailblazer, like I mentioned earlier, of kind of hopefully inspiring some kids from around our area to do some big things, not even in football in general, but just big things for our communities and continue to grow the young generation for futures to come. I think that's the huge thing for you know, building the youth for our futures as well. So appreciate you jumping on here, Brock. If anybody else is tuning into the podcast still, please continue to support the podcast over on the YouTube and Apple Podcast. Get us up over to 100 subscribers, like I mentioned earlier, guys. 93, 7 away from 100. All the support is greatly appreciated. Get over to the Apple Podcast channel as well. Brock, thank you so much for joining me, my friend. I hope you have a good off season. Maybe we'll get in touch in the spring around training camp or something like that, and we'll record another episode. Do you have any plans for the off season? Are you coming back home? I'm guessing. Are you home now?
Yeah, so no, I'm still in Montreal right now. Looks like we're gonna be staying in Montreal, but so last year in March I did a kids camp in Cowichan there, and it's a fundraiser for the community. It's a fundraiser for that program. All proceeds go back into that program. So I'm looking to come back in March. So anybody in the community there, keep your eye out. I know it's well shared by everybody last time, but yeah, great opportunity to come learn. We got coaches from VI, coaches from the Rebels, trying to get a couple guys from the CFL over as well, maybe touch into that BC Lions kind of area. But yeah, looking to grow that camp and get as many as kids as we can. Used to be that in Big Hill camp. Maybe he's going to come out again. We haven't really talked about it, but yeah, so hoping to, if I can, bring the cup back for that kind of weekend too.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Good for you. I have a name in mind. I'm definitely going to send you a young D lineman from NDSS. So just keep on doing what you're doing, buddy. I think you're doing big things for your community as well as the Canadian game. So I appreciate you giving me some of your time this morning, your afternoon. I know you're probably busy during a Saturday, Sunday when you're hectic during the week. So I appreciate you giving me some of your time and just sharing a little bit about your journey and inspiring some other guys. So for those that enjoyed the podcast today, I hope you guys enjoyed episode 28 already. We will be taking a short little break for the holiday season. I think I'll be back around the new year, so stay tuned for that episode. But I appreciate all the support so far, and we will see you guys in the next episode of Coast to Coast Gridiron.